Hi Mark, my name is Bob. I've seen your video and I want to refute it. You've got two things that I want to basically deal with. You got some name calling, and then you have the middle, which you give us the day in the life of a Occupy Wall Streeter. And then you could do some name calling. I'm going to leave all the name calling until last. I'm going to deal first with the Occupy Wall Street day in the life of. First off, you're wrong. It's not about evil corporations. What it's about is the owners of those corporations who are not paying their fair share of taxes. And then you go on to talk about being unemployed and things along those lines, and you list off the litany of 24 different things, and those aren't true because, and you say that, we're unemployed, so that's all that we've got to do. Well, that's not true. Only 15% of us are unemployed. And the average age is 33, not 23. So consequently, both of those are, your statement in the middle just doesn't hold water. But I'm going to get back to that a little bit later, and not in the way you probably think. But I'm going to deal now with the first set of name calling that you have. First, you say that we're unemployed. Well, I just proved that that's not the case. We're only 15% of us are unemployed. Then you say we're overeducated. I don't quite understand that term, because overeducated to me just doesn't have any meaning. Is that what we wanted to be? Isn't that what we want our kids to be? Isn't that what you want your children to be, is educated? And maybe if they're overeducated, they'll become professors and maybe make that into that 1%. I don't know the answer to that. Then you say that we're self-righteous. Well, Mark, so are you, and so am I. And if we believe in what we believe in, then we are self-righteous. We stand on our podium and tell everybody what we think, which is what you've done and which is what I'm doing here. Then you call us morally indignant hypocrites. And I don't understand, if you look at the other stuff, since only 15% of us are unemployed and everybody else is around 30 years old, how can we be hypocrites? What we're arguing about isn't the evil corporations or even buying things from them. What we're arguing about is to whether or not that 1/5% of the country, of our citizens, to pay their fair share of taxes. You're not paying your fair share, and neither are they. So that's what we're arguing about. So the hypocrite goes out the window, and yes, we're morally indignant. And so was this country founded on, was moral indignation. Prior to 1776, there was a group of men, and other situations as well, but this is the one I remember. What they taught us in school was, there was a group of men dressed up as Indians that went aboard a ship and dumped private property, as you indicated, dumped that private property into the ocean because they were being unfairly taxed. So yeah, I'm glad to be, in that part. I'm also glad that they did that so that you and I can sit here and have that conversation today about what we disagree about. Then you go on into this litany of unemployment and the fact that we don't do social things, etc., etc., etc. Part of what I want to talk about real quickly is about the taxes that you pay, and I'm not going to number them on the screen like you do because I don't need to, because I think that's too overwhelming. But one of the things that you talk about is, not talk about, but one of the things you don't mention is the fact that you pay federal tax, state tax, Social Security tax, unemployment tax, and probably some local taxes out of your check. Then there's your property tax, there's tax on your water, heat, lights, and also on your internet, on your telephone, on your cell phone, and also on your cable. If you go to the grocery store, you're paying sales tax, and you're probably paying sales tax, not sales tax, but a tax on your alcohol, because I'm assuming you have a beer every once in a while. I hope you don't smoke, but even if you do, that one is a pretty hefty tax. Then you go to the gas stations, you know that you're paying 45 cents a gallon in taxes, both federal, state, and local ones. There's a lot of taxes out there, and that doesn't include you paying your mortgage, probably 2 cars, your 3 or 4 credit cards, and any other loan you have to those corporations, which the people that benefit from that are the ones that are of that 1%. With all of that in mind and everything, those are your taxes. On June 23rd, you will be done paying your taxes then. On February 8th, the 1% or 5% are done paying their taxes as well. So there's a difference there of almost 4.5 months that you're paying your taxes and they're not. So you can imagine how much more assets they're acquiring during that period of time than you are. So with all of that in mind, you then jump into this group of stuff that just doesn't make sense. And there's one thing I really, really take offense to. And I'm going to get to that last. You tell us that we're not socially involved and that to change stuff we ought to be. Well, guess what? I volunteer for the USO, the VA, my local library, my local Parks and Rec division, and a couple of other places. So I am socially involved. Now, you also talk about the Chinese and the Vietnamese making all this stuff for J. Crew and stuff. Again, we're not worried about the corporations. We all have to buy things, okay? But those corporations move those jobs out of this country, and they're the ones that are actually doing it, not me or you. We've lost jobs because of that. And those are the same corporations that we bailed out for $700 billion, and I don't see any of it trickling down. So much so that in the last 3 years, those corporations have foreclosed on over 12 million homes, in which there were 78 million homes in this country. That's a huge amount. I don't see them coming back and not foreclosing on those people when they're the ones that caused them to get it in the first place. All of that said, all of it said, the fact is that the people aren't 20-something, they're 30-something. The fact that we're not all unemployed, but only 15% of us are. The fact that they're paying their unfair share of taxes, and you are too, but it's kind of skewed the other way. The fact is that you've taken all these and you've done all the other stuff and said that, maybe we should help somebody on the street. Well, guess what? I can't afford to. Then you tell me that carrying signs and screaming and yelling is not going to change anything. Well, it has. In the 1960s and the 1970s, we had some civil rights issues in this country, and we held in signs and protested, and we walked together as groups with gentlemen like Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy and several others. We also in the 70s held those same signs. Now, we did something wrong in terms of not supporting our troops because they weren't over there on their own. But we stopped a war that was incorrect, that we found out 5 years ago didn't have a damn thing to do with communism, but had to do with the fact that we wanted the oil in the bay outside of Hanoi. Perhaps you might want to read a little bit more about that. Okay? And then you really, and I could think of some other words to think about, to say right now, but I'm not going to, is the fact that you insult me by saying that you are the 90% have a job are laughing at the 10% that don't. Well, guess what? I put out 50 resumes a week. I have over 30 years experience and I can't find a job. And you're laughing at me? I'm going to tell you what, Mark. You go to bed tonight, you pull those warm covers up, and you think about all the people that are out there on that street that are homeless because they can't find a job. And then you pull that up, and I want you to think and dream about becoming one of those 1%ers who own 50% of this country. And then, dream about the limousines, the $1 million mansions, the servants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I want you to wake up the next day, tomorrow morning, and I want you to think about that and realize that it is not a dream. It is a fantasy. Because you are never going to see that, Mark, because they're not going to let you into their club. And then I want you to think about that dream and realize that it is a nightmare for some of us.